6 months have passed since two small children, 6-year-old Lily Sullivan and her 4-year-old brother Jack, vanished from their quiet home in rural Nova Scotia. For months, investigators have combed the forests, drained creeks, searched barns and ditches, and followed more than 1,000 tips. Yet not a single trace of the Sullivan children has ever been found. And then came an interview. One that sent ripples across every true crime community in Canada. Because in that interview, their stepfather, Daniel Martell, said something that froze people in their tracks. I hope this speculation turns elsewhere. For many watching, those weren't the words of a desperate man pleading for answers. They sounded, at least to some, like the words of a man who wanted the spotlight to move away.
Exact day when the arrival was going to happen. But at the end of the day, everything's ruled out there, and I hope this speculation, turns elsewhere.
Like, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel. No gloss. No sugarcoat. Just raw reality. Before the headlines, before the interviews, before the speculation, life on Gairloch Road in Lansdowne Station, Nova Scotia, was ordinary. The Sullivan family lived in a small rural home surrounded by fields, trees, and winding gravel paths. Neighbors describe the area as peaceful, a place where doors are left unlocked, and the sound of birds usually drowns out any noise from the distant highway. Daniel Martell, the children's stepfather, lived there with his partner, the children's mother Mia Sullivan, and other relatives. To anyone on the outside, they looked like a typical family trying to get by. There were birthday photos, backyard playtime videos, moments that looked painfully normal. Then came the morning that changed everything, May 2nd, 2025. That Friday morning, the children were gone. Vanished from their bedrooms sometime during the night. No footprints leading away. No signs of forced entry. Just 2 empty beds and a silence that has since haunted Nova Scotia. At first, the community did what small communities always do, they mobilized. Hundreds of volunteers scoured fields, ponds, and forests. RCMP set up roadblocks. The province issued alerts. For the first few days, Daniel Martell appeared calm in front of cameras. He thanked searchers. He said he was cooperating fully. But as days turned into weeks, something shifted. Online discussions began dissecting every word he said. His interviews were replayed, frame by frame, by people who study microexpressions, statement analysis, and behavioral cues. Then came that now famous CBC segment, Martell's first in-depth interview since the disappearance. That's where he said it. At the end of the day, everything's ruled out there. I hope this speculation turns elsewhere. And that single sentence lit the internet on fire. The interview was straightforward at first. Daniel Martell recounted how he'd come home to find RCMP cadaver dog teams already searching his property. He said he hadn't known exactly when they were arriving but that he was cooperating fully. He spoke calmly, sometimes with a faint nervous laugh, about the days that followed. But it was that closing remark, the one about speculation turning elsewhere, that became the moment many couldn't forget. Why would a man whose stepchildren are still missing hope that speculation turns elsewhere? For some, it was a simple expression of frustration, an exhausted man tired of being judged by strangers online. But for others, it felt like a deflection, a plea to stop looking his way, not a plea to keep looking for Lily and Jack. The comments spread quickly. Clips flooded TikTok and Reddit. Comment sections filled with debates. Some users defended him, writing, "He's been under constant scrutiny, anyone would snap." Others questioned his composure. One viral post read, "Most parents beg for the search to continue. He's begging people to stop speculating." The emotional divide grew. Meanwhile, RCMP continued their search. They brought in cadaver dogs from British Columbia, trained units capable of detecting human scent even after months. They covered nearly 40 kilometers of terrain surrounding the home. When the results came back, no human remains found, Martell expressed relief. But again, that relief was tinged with a phrase that echoed his earlier words, "I hope the speculation turns elsewhere." For families of missing children, closure doesn't come from ending speculation. It comes from answers. That's what made the interview so haunting. Police have never called Daniel Martell a suspect. In fact, the RCMP have repeatedly emphasized that the case remains open and that they don't yet have reasonable grounds to believe a criminal act occurred. Still, his public statements have become part of the story, because they offer a glimpse into how he processes what happened. In another part of the same interview, Martell discussed being questioned by investigators about the Thursday before the disappearance. He described that day as ordinary, saying nothing unusual happened. But reports indicate that Lilly had stayed home sick from school that Thursday, breaking the family's normal routine. To analysts, that stood out. Because minimizing or skipping over a day that deviates from the routine can sometimes reveal discomfort with the details. Again, it's not proof, just an observation. But it's one that resonated deeply in the online true crime space. When asked by a reporter if he was preparing for the possibility that the search dogs might find something, Martell replied, "No, because I didn't do anything. I know Mia didn't do anything. I know my mother didn't do anything. 3 people on the property. 3 assurances." To some listeners, that sounded confident, maybe too confident. Because if you were asleep when it happened, how could you be so sure who didn't do anything? That's where the tone of the story began to change. Each time Daniel Martell spoke publicly, he emphasized what wasn't true rather than what could be true. He didn't plead for clues. He didn't issue emotional appeals to whoever might have taken them. Instead, he returned to a single theme, clearing himself of suspicion. Behavioral analysts on YouTube and podcasts began comparing his statements to those of other parents in missing child cases. They noted how often his focus was on perception rather than outcome, on how the public saw him rather than on finding the children. But again, those are interpretations, not facts. Legally, Daniel Martell remains an uncharged party. Emotionally, though, his words have reshaped the narrative of the Sullivan case. Because once a statement like "I hope this speculation turns elsewhere" is uttered, you can't unhear it. It becomes a prism through which every future interview is viewed. For the families watching, for the neighbors who joined search lines, for the officers who have spent months following dead-end leads, it changes the tone. Every interview since then has been replayed with that one line echoing in the background. It's easy to forget that behind every headline are real people, 2 little kids who never came home. Lilly, with her curly hair and shy smile. Jack, the quieter one, who loved toy trucks and followed his sister everywhere. When you strip away the speculation, the interviews, the analysis, you're left with that haunting absence. The bed still made, the school bag still hanging by the door. Daniel Martell's interview became a mirror, reflecting not just his own state of mind, but ours too. It showed how quickly public empathy can turn into suspicion. How one sentence can change the trajectory of a case. As of today, the RCMP maintain that the investigation is ongoing. The $150,000 reward still stands. And somewhere in Nova Scotia, answers still exist. Until then, all we can do is keep asking questions, carefully, responsibly, and with compassion for the children at the heart of it all. Because speculation may fade, but truth never should. This is raw reality. No gloss. No sugarcoat. Just raw reality.